G'day, welcome to the Spearo podcast. My name's Isaac, aka Shrek, the host of the Spearo podcast. Today's episode is way different than normal. Generally on this podcast, I chat with spearfishing experts and authorities from around the world and sort of dial in on the tips and stories and tricks and wisdom that they've learned over years spearfishing in the sport and sort of share those lessons learned. Today's episode's a lot different. I chat with Rob Tratt, who's the brother of Matt Tratt, the bloke who recently was fatally attacked off Frazer Island. And we get to share a little bit of Matt's story here on the podcast, it was a real honour. And it was a pleasure having Rob. He reached out to me and messaged me and mentioned, and I knew Matt. He had contacted me previously about the podcast and shared that, he was really enjoying it. And this is a definite first for me. It's having one of our listeners sadly pass away. And this time it was quite probably a bullshark that attacked him and killed him fatally. And so today, this episode, you get to listen to my chat with Rob, who was in the water with Matt when it all happened. And Rob's only a noob to spearfishing, but frothed on it and getting to hang out with his younger brother Matt, who is a very competent and very passionate Spearo, who funnily enough listen to the show as well. So get to share that story with you today, and I'm not going to have any ads or anything else. This episode is not about boosting downloads or some sort of weird type of thing where I, get to share some sensationalist news. This is the story of a guy who loves spearing and who unfortunately, had something awful happen. And it could have happened to any of us by the sounds of it. And so anyway, let's get into this interview with Rob Tratt. And we get into the shark story fairly late in the interview. If you want to skip ahead to that, then I'd encourage you to go to today's show notes, noobspearo.com/Matt, M-A-T-T, and you can see where the story starts into the story of the actual attack itself. But it was a real pleasure just getting to hear Matt's story, how he grew up, and a little bit about the bloke. And yeah, look, I don't know if I can say enjoy this episode, but look, let's get into it. I had a mad chat with Rob, and it's a top interview. Here we go. G'day, Spearo community. Today's interview is, I don't really know how to put it delicately. It's not something I've ever done before, and it's a real honour to be able to do it, and I'm kind of humbled by the experience, to be honest. But I just wanted to welcome along Matt Tratt to talk about some stuff that happened with his brother Matt recently. So welcome to the show, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I contacted you straight away. My brother was a big fan of the Spearo podcast. I don't know what number you're up to, but I have a feeling he was up to number 126 from the start, and he's been listening to all the new ones ever since he got on board, and I've listened to about 3 of your shows. I listened to one, is it Niles?
Niall Cameron.
That crazy South African?
Yeah, yep.
And, mate, that was just so entertaining. That guy is just such a legend, and my brother knew I'd love that one, so I got stuck in, listened to that, and I'm a massive hunter. Love my guns, love my shooting, love shooting pigs and all that sort of stuff like that, and that's my passion. That's what I'm really into, and I'm heavily involved in that scene. I'm also, I love it. I'm addicted to it, and my brother's into the spearfishing, and he's got all the spears, and he was like, man, don't get any spears. You come spearing with me. And I was like, yeah, no, same here. Like, don't buy any guns. Just come and you can use my guns. And it's been really good. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'd love it if my brothers were as organised with their passions as I am with mine. But I dropped a bloody full set of spearing gear off to my youngest brother last year, and it sat in his garage. So it's bloody good that you guys had that kind of relationship. That's pretty special too. Yeah.
I hope you tucked up those rubbers then, because otherwise they're going to be gone.
And the bugger ended up actually giving the stuff off to a mate, but he's a generous bugger and he wouldn't have given it to just any old person. It was a person that was passionate and wanted to give it a good crack, so I don't begrudge it at all. But
no, that's like it's funny that we talk about we've got these two different passions, but over the last couple of months, like he does work up at Noosa and he'll drive home and he'll ring me up like once or twice a week and we'll have a conversation for like an hour and a half, and he'll talk about all the things from the Noob Spearo show and, the technical aspects of a spear. Like, he just loves, I love that technical stuff. And it's funny, man, you can draw so many parallels from firearms to the spears. He was telling me about how he's listened to one show and it's the diameter of the shaft means it can get better penetration, but, you lose a bit of weight behind it, but it'll go faster through the water. And the shorter the rubber is, the higher the muzzle velocity off the end of the spear and all that sort of stuff like that. And I love that stuff. Like that's the stuff I could live on for days, even though I'm not even an active Spearo. But, we're talking about, the speed difference of a roller versus that. Yeah, and that's the stuff that like does it for me. It's pretty exciting. And so it's what's cool.
That's awesome. So what's the age gap between you and Matt? So
I'm 2 years older than he is. But I don't consider him the little brother. He's just always been my brother. And then I've got a little sister, so
okay,
pretty close age gap. So, but we've probably been closer in the last couple of years than we were previously because he was traveling around the country. We were never that tight. Like he'd ring me up once every 6 months and I was like, what's wrong? And he'd be like, nothing. I was like, why are you calling me? He's like, everyone keeps asking me how you are. So I'm just ringing up to ask how you are. How are you? Like, yeah, good, mate. How are you? And we'd have a good laugh and a chuckle about it. But and then, once his wife got pregnant, they come back to Brisbane or to Sunshine Coast, and we saw a lot more of them then, obviously, and stuff like that. And of course, they got the kids, and my wife wants to see their kids, and I want to see their kids as well. And so me and Matt, we got to hang out a lot since the kids have come along, and it's just been really good, So it's just been fun, good times. He's a good bloke.
Yeah, awesome. So, I mean, you're into your land hunting. Matt was into spearfishing. When did that all start, do you think, for the two of you? Was it a separate or was it a sort of a...
I was trying to think back on this, and look, I probably don't have the full details of how that started, but my dad had this Hawaiian sling, and it's and it's this old school Hawaiian sling. It's a big brass one that's been chrome plated.
Okay.
Right? And you can untwist the end and you can extend it out, right? So it goes from
like a telescopic pole spear.
Yeah. So you untwist the end and it goes from like 6 foot and you can extend it out to 12 foot. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but as a young guy, I used to get it and I'd untwist it, I'd take it out to about 8 foot so that when I got the rubber, I could push it all the way up to 8 foot. Because if you went any longer, it'd start to bend and it wouldn't go straight.
Oh, yeah.
So, like the old fiberglass one. So I knew where the limit was of how long I could make it to get the most power out of it, because obviously I understood that early on that you need the power. And I'm not sure. One of our mates turned up with a fiberglass hand spear, like a Hawaiian one. And he's like, and I was like, oh yeah, Dad's got one of them. I'll go ask him for it. And I went home and knocked it off, and the rubber was all perished, and I had to go down to Amart All Sports and I bought like a metre of rubber and tied a knot and bent the little metal things around it and all that stuff. And I don't remember what the first thing I got, but I remember the real first experience. I was with the brother-in-law actually, and this was probably before he was even dating my sister. And we went out in the ocean, and I was out there, and there was this big flatty just laying on the bottom of the sand, like, it's just the beach, I don't know, in the Caloundra or Maroochydore or somewhere, or maybe Coolum. And this big flatty, I just went straight over the top of it. I didn't even dive down because it probably only 2 meters, 2.5 meters deep. It was straight through the top of its head, and it was just thrashing around it was thrashing around. And I remember I was holding the spear into the ground and then reaching up to try and get a breath of air because it's the waves come through. And this thing's thrashing around for a while. And anyway, I get this thing and I lifting it up on the spear, keeping it on the spear, and I walked it into the beach and just waving it around like a trophy. And then all these people coming up going, oh man, that's a big fish. I didn't know they were out here, blah, blah. And I sort of hid it in beside this rock and put my towel over it And then I was like, took my brother-in-law. I was like, I'll get you onto a good one, like I'll teach you what to do. Like I was some kind of expert because I just got one big fish. And I took him out there and I got him found him another flathead, just slightly smaller than mine, because you can't make sure you don't get him one bigger than yours. And anyway, got him onto it. He chased it off once, and then I found it again for him and chased it off again. I can't remember if he missed or if he got too close or whatever. Anyway, he shoots it through the back of the head, but his dies like instantly. And I remember we dragged that one up the beach, and one of our old friends was up the beach, and I was like, yeah, we're holding up these fish. And he's like, put them down. You're attracting too much attention. I was like, who cares, man? These are good fish. Anyway, he's like, no, put them down, hide them, wrap them up in that towel. Well, we wrap him up in that towel. He's like, gets us off the beach real quick. And he's like, dude, those fish are illegal. I was like, what do you mean? They're above the 450 or 350, whatever the legal size was. He's like, yeah, but the max size is 750. And one was 96 centimeters and the other one was 89. And he was cracking it at me. Like he was going off his chops and but it's funny, as angry as he got, I've never seen someone eat the fish so fast in his life. So, so it was within that time frame was when he started getting into the Hawaiian slings with my other mates, and then he sort of went off on his own. It was probably literally the last time I went spearing, and but he carried it on because I don't even eat fish.
Yeah, righto. Okay,
it's deep fried and crumb because then it doesn't taste like fish.
Cool. So you've ended up sort of heading off on this hunting path. Was there something that appealed to the water with Matt, or was it like what do you really reckon?
Well, he was into his surfing, big time. I did surfing to some degree, but he moved up the coast and he was surfing all the time with some of our other mates, and he really got stuck into that, and he just loved the water life, I guess. So he every weekend was hitting the beach and he just enjoyed it, and I think it's just a natural progression from there. Maybe he was a bit tighter up for cash and he could get free fish for food and stuff like that as well. So, but that's probably not true. I think he certainly enjoyed eating his fish. We were brought up by my dad, like always going fishing and catching fish and stuff like that. But I only found out later that my dad was massive into his lure fishing.
Okay.
He never caught a fish on a lure, but I was too busy catching fish to notice that he wasn't catching any on lures. So I think when he got onto a spear and he could get stuff, he was like, loved it, Maybe he's playing catch up.
Something about seeing them too, like this is a little bit different than line fishing. Like, like whether you're catching them or not, kind of the joy of seeing them is also a big part of it as well. So, yeah, cool.
No, that's probably one of the things that I just got to appreciate in the last couple of months talking to him all the time is, I hate these vegan extremists, these activists, and, they try and stop hunting and try and stop fishing and all this sort of stuff like that. And, the one thing he pointed out to me was he gets to be really selective of the fish, like he can choose what fish he takes out of the water. If you're a line fisherman, you can only take what you catch that comes in and choose whether to put it back or not. And the chances of catching something is almost so slim, you just have to put up with whatever gets on the hook. Whereas he can go out there and be selective of exactly the fish he wants. And he's like, says to me, he was telling me how certain fish are good to eat, but only if they're fresh, straight off the plate, straight to the plate. But then other fish can hold on ice for a long time and still be really good to eat. So, it's interesting that he would select fish based on whether he could eat them and consume them straight away or whether they're going to be put in the freezer, and all that sort of stuff like that. So
I can relate to that. Like the longer you spearfish for too, like you know what's in your freezer. It's like you have this inventory in the back of your head, and then depending on how much fish you've got on hand is kind of, it's how many fish you kind of take on the day, and definitely it sort of marks you for in terms of what you plan to catch and stock up on and all the rest of it. So it also seems to vary my bloodlust.
It's funny though, like how even though I'm not in the fishing scene, I was still able to influence him to some degree because I'm, like I said, I'm sort of massive into my bit political and all that sort of stuff like that. And I was talking to him about some of the changes they're talking about in the New South Wales fish laws and all that sort of stuff like that. And I was telling him how, only something like 2% of bag limits ever get reached, by at least, but mostly by the line fishermen and all that sort of stuff like that. And I was telling him how I sort of disagreed with some of that, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, next thing I was talking about how like your bag limit is what's in your freezer, not what's on the boat. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, mate, you know, if you can only have 2 of a fish, it's not 2 of a fish per day, it's 2 of a fish in your possession. And then he's like, oh, and so he went and researched, and he's like, wow. And of course, that's like changes the game again, because now you've got to, you know, if you already got 2 fish, you've got to either give one away, or you've got to boycott those fish to get other fish. And you know, it's interesting that even someone that's not in the spear game can pass on some kind of education. And
yeah, for sure. So, I mean, how important was this kind of this hunting, you know, this self-sustaining, you know, catching your own food, something special? It's something land hunters and spearfishers can relate to completely, I think. How important was that to Matt?
Yeah, it was really important. You know, he was all about putting the good food on the table. You know, like he still loves his beef and his chicken and that, probably more of chicken than the beef and that. And but no, him and his mates are real connoisseurs of the different fish, you know, and they'd joke about which fish were good and which fish were bad, and you know, yeah. So it's just one of those things. It's like, you know, like they go, oh, this one is better than this one, and that's that one, and you know, I'm like, man, fish is a fish. They're all dirty, you know, like unless you deep fry and crumb them.
Yeah. It's like the longer you do it too, the more refined your palate gets, and the fussier you become with the treatment of particular species and the way in which you approach them.
And of course that's where it comes into. He's like starts talking about how to prepare certain fish. Like, oh, that one you need to cook it on a barbecue and use lemon, or that one is a deep fryer, or you know, this one will hold its moisture good. I don't know, all this stuff he was coming up with, and that.
So it sounds like you influenced each other. How did he influence you? Like, what were some of the biggest things with regards to, I guess, this, you know, just the lifestyle of a hunter? Was there? Did he have any influence on you as a younger brother?
Well, he was my younger brother, but as far as fishing and hunting goes, he probably didn't have too much of an impact. But you know, in my personal life, and you know, I was living in Logan when he first moved back, and he really pushed me to move out of there. You know, our house was getting broken into all the time, and cars getting the windows smashed. And it's funny, like when you live there, your level of normality becomes quite obscured of what you think is normal behaviour. And he's like, dude, you've got to get out of there. That's not normal. That's not normal. And I can't remember what the conversation was, but something he had. I was like, man, yeah, you're right. I've got to get out. And getting out of Logan was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And that's also what opened up the opportunities, being half an hour closer to him. Okay, yeah, we can go down on a Friday night, now come back on a Sunday night. And that's when the friendship really picked up to the next level, and we got to spend some really good quality time together. You know, even just going up there and sitting on his boat and talking spear and talking guns and talking about his boat. And, you know, he's got a lot invested in his boat, and he finally finished it and he never took it out. So it's a little bit disappointing, but that's okay. We're okay with that.
So you live in Brisbane, fairly close to me now. Your brother was up on the Sunshine Coast. Where did you guys grow up? Were you in the up in the Sunshine Coast, or were you here in Brisbane?
No, we grew up in Ipswich, mate. We grew up on a 14-acre block, and we used to run around with air rifles and just shoot stuff, shoot guns and try and shoot hares and stuff, and never really successfully took anything down of course. But we must have gone through thousands of air rifle pellets. It was, you know, we had a good time growing up, and there's a little dam there. We used to go fish the spangled perch that were breeding up in there. And, you know, me and my brother would go cane toad hunting with a BB gun with a torch strapped to the barrel. And Dad was telling me it was 14 years after we left the house before he saw his next cane toad.
That's a good run, boys. You did a good job there.
Oh, mate, we knew where they lived. We knew how to hunt them. Like, we were like digging them up out of cracks in the mud because we knew that they were down there. And was scooping out tadpoles and killing the tadpoles and, just trying to protect our waterways. That's what we thought. So.
Yeah. Oh, and you were, like they're an invasive pest, and I guess that's the other side of it is like as hunters and stuff, we have a even I think from a young age we have an interest in playing our part in a healthy ecosystem. So it's awesome. This is why it's so important, I think, to get your kids out there. It's because, we like being part of the ecosystem. We don't view ourselves as like nature and we're people. It's like we're all in this, and as people, we have a role to play in it. And, like when you're a young kid, like in New Zealand, it's possums that are invasive. So we're always shooting possums, I mean, Australians hear that, like big brush-tailed possums and that. And in New Zealand, it's like they're on steroids. They're bigger than a house cat, and their fur grows really thick. But but from a young age, I grew up kind of the same as you guys. It was hunting them, and we're not really hunting. It was more just shooting, to be honest. But I think it's special growing up as a kid and being able to fish, being able to hunt. These are the kind of the core values we have, and whether it's cane toads or possums in New Zealand, whatever it is, I think it's a special thing, and it's a funny how like bonds grow and develop over that time as well. So yeah.
Well, they're talking about the cane toad problem in Queensland and all that, man. Just bring back BB guns, mate. They'll be gone in 2 years.
Oh, the gun laws. Let's not get started. Jeepers, I know you like your politics, but jeepers, that's a ship fire, that one.
Yeah, that's a big can of worms. Oh, not interested in opening that tonight. That's fine.
Cool. What about your brother's personality? What was Matt like as a bloke? You got to know him a lot as an adult yourself. I mean, how would you describe him, and how would some of his best mates kind of describe him?
Look, he's very, people say he's on the spectrum. He's got Asperger's, and he's a straight shooter. If you want to know how it is, he'll tell you, and it'll hit you in the chest sometimes. And some people aren't prepared for it. They don't know how to deal with it because he doesn't sugarcoat anything. It's as it is. I remember as a kid, he telling chicks, "Oh, your bum looks big," and that. I was like, "Dude, you can't say that." He goes, "But it does. It does." I was like, "Yeah, but you can't say that. Why can't I say it if it is?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're never going to get a girlfriend if you say things like that." And, and it's just been like that. That's the sort of the thing he says, just says what it is. But a lot of people growing up around him, and that they accept it. And we've got one friend, and she's good mates with my sister. She grew up with us in the house, and she's like 7 years younger than me and 5 years younger than him. And she's like, she knows it. And like my brother will say stuff to her, and she's like, "Oh, like whatever, water off a duck's back." Like he doesn't really mean it, but like who cares? And she said she loves watching him dish it out to other people, and they don't know how to react to it. They're squirming and like, "Oh, is that serious? Like, what do you mean?" And she just says she gets a thrill from that, like But you always get the honest truth. I think if one thing is people often they only get told what they think you want to hear, and he never does that. And he was never changed the way he talks for anyone. So he's not very, I wouldn't say he's not very politically correct, but, it's just...
he just doesn't beat around the bush. He won't lie to you. He just tells you as it is.
Yeah, obviously, he's a good family man, and he's a good husband and all that to his good dad to his kids and all that sort of stuff like that. And, he worked on a lot of things there for a long time. He didn't want kids. It ruined his trip around Australia. But, when they started getting a bit older and started communicating with him, he really turned the tide and started enjoying it. And it was just the diaper stage he just didn't like. So, but he loved it. And
that's a dad thing too, I think.
Teaching his young son how to spearfish, so just passing it on down the generations. It's pretty cool.
So you guys were out spearfishing. Was it a line fishing trip? What was the circumstance?
What I'd like to talk about first is I just want to talk a bit about what it was like. I had to get some notes off of his mates on what he's like, as I guess, to try and build what the experience level was in the water.
For sure.
And that's what I'd like to talk about first. And then, so like I said, I'm not sure how the spear gun come into the hand, but obviously, as it says, it's a natural progression after the Hawaiian sling. But hang on, I'm just trying to find the notes I took. So
yeah, no worries.
I do apologise to the listeners, but this is a part of the story that I really wasn't there for, and so I have to speak from others. But he told me the stuff, and I listened. But as a shooter, I didn't know what's special and what's not in the community. So I'm happy to talk about the things as we go through it. But okay, so he could dive down to 35 meters, and he was a 2-minute diver at those depths. He was a high-level diver, extremely competent. But even at the level he was at, he was always willing to listen and to talk to other divers and to learn more. He loved listening and loved learning from the Noob Spearo podcast, which is why I'm here. And it's something he made all his spearing mates listen to when they're driving around to and from work and to the spearing grounds and all that sort of stuff like that. And in the water, he was always calm, professional, especially in the deeper waters. He would always wait and watch you for you from the surface. If it was your dive, he wouldn't take his eye off you until you reached the surface, and he knew you was okay. He really enjoyed diving with the guys, that would do the same for him. And my mate Wayne, he said he always felt safe and comfortable in the water with Matt, and he just had that presence about him. He would always cater for all levels out on the trips. If Matty had one guy that was a 10 to 15 metre diver and the rest were all 30-plus divers, Matty would work around to make sure that everyone got a good dive on a spot that suited all levels. He was a real class act in that sense. And I know for a fact that he loved taking new guys out. He just wanted to fish with people that were keen to fish. It didn't matter whether you were a 5-metre diver or a 30-metre diver. He just wanted people that were hungry for it and excited about, passionate. It's difficult when people got kids because they can't go out at the drop of a hat. And he, with this sport, it's all weather dependent. So you need to be able to go out when the weather's good. And so the more people that he could take with him, then the more opportunities to spear. Because obviously when you dive in these deeper things, you can't be alone. Like all good hunters, he always looked for a good kill shot. He was a natural at his techniques and movements in the water, and he was stealthy and an efficient hunter. In the recent months, he finally got the boat to the level that he wanted, which I talked about. Had big plans for a Swains trip. Swains,
yep. Southern Great Barrier Reef.
Yep. Yeah. And it was the ultimate goal for him to run his own boat out there for a big mission. But obviously, sadly, that'll never happen now. That the boat's sitting out there finished.
What sort of boat is it?
Is it? So it's a Mustang. I think it's a 6.5 metre. But with the new thing, with the pod off the back, it's technically, I think he said to me, it's technically like a 7.5 metre boat.
Jeepers, he was building a great Swains boat.
Oh yeah, it was originally a inboard V8, and he bought it, got it home, and my mate, he works at Brisbane Yamaha, and he was like, dude, you're an idiot, don't buy an inboard, they're just trouble. And then first trip we went out to Moreton Bay in it, and it was playing up a little bit. Anyway, took it home, he did some stuff and put it back in the water. He was having issues with timing and stuff, and he was ringing me up and ringing my dad up, trying to sort out the timing on the V8 engine. I bit into my engines, and anyway, next thing's next. The water jackets burst into the thing, and the engine was cooked, and he took it down to get rebuilt, and they were told, man, this thing's gone, you need a whole new engine, blah, blah. And he did the maths and sums on it, and then he decided to put this pod on the back and chucked a 300 horsepower Yemi on the back, because once you go Yemi, you'll never go back. So, and anyone on the spearfishing pages for Queensland, I'm assuming you might have seen him around, but got this U-Butte big stainless steel tonneau cover for the top, and it's purpose built. And he's like asked for some specific things because of the different levels of the deck. It could sleep, I think, 4 people comfortably, like big front thing and a thing underneath, and custom made fuel tank where the V8 used to be, and I helped fit that in with him and run the fuel lines, and big heavy winch off the front for the chain, big long, I don't know, maybe 200 meters of rope off that.
Jeepers.
Like the seats were a bit custom. One of the seats doubles as an esky, and then room for a massive esky. He just had a 270 litre esky that they put in the centre of the boat, and because obviously you're not line fishing, it's not really an issue. He did a little bit of line fishing, but but spearing was his true passion. So, and he just finished getting this new sounder. I don't know what it is, but it's a pretty expensive job. And he drove down to Gold Coast to pick it up. And I literally, like 2 weekends ago, we made this little pod, and we had to move some of the gauges from in the dash to in the pod so we could put this sounder on the dash. And it was ready to go. And he said to me, he's like, he's like, it's finally finished. Except I've started looking at these transducers. So,
oh no, that's another rabbit hole.
So no, I don't, all I know is that's a thing for the sounder, so.
Some of these guys, I think maybe he was looking at these big through-hole setups so you can do all cross-scanning and stuff, so you can be motoring between spots and it just scans everything and it works. It doesn't become inaccurate, like sometimes with your standard sort of transducer setup, you just lose all your detail and stuff as soon as you start motoring at serious rate of knots. So maybe that was something he was looking at, but yeah.
And so just to put that in perspective, he bought a block up at 1770, and that was, he'd go up there because they were fishing up 1770 all the time. So that's the idea was to drive the boat up there. Maybe in the I think it was in the winter was his plan, like leave the boat up there for 3 months and then just do weekend trips up there and take the boat out and just drive back down and all that sort of stuff like that. So that block of land that was all about being able to do a little bit of hunting, and being close to the really hot fishing grounds. And so, it was, for his hobby, the spearing was everything,
Bloody hell. He was right into it. So one of his good spearing mates has been staying there with you? You guys been sharing stories?
Yeah, and it's been really good because, like, I know these boys, but it's really the first time I met him because all my stories have just been from him, so... and just this other thing that just about his skill level, I guess my mate said he spoke in depth and at length about the risks of shallow water blackouts, sharks and even boat handling in the weather, and he was fully aware of all the risks. It was a real keystone for him and our other mate Ben and a major part of the fishing and diving dynamic. And for him personally, he's not sure where to go from here, so I'll just pull that up there. And he had two blackouts. He did have a shallow water blackout.
Oh wow!
Some time ago, I think, and he did have a deep water blackout close to the surface. And he didn't, that deep water blackout, he didn't even remember coming to the surface or anything like that. And he was with one of his other mates. He has done the free diving course, and I believe it was when he did the free dive. I think that was like a year or 18 months ago. I'm not sure on the thing, but when he did that free diving course, that was when I think really found more people in the community, because from that he found a Facebook group which had a Facebook Messenger group, I think, and a Facebook page, and that's when I think he started finding some of the more skilled Spearos to go and help him find new limits and push new things. And that free diving course really opened things up for him, because he thought he knew what his limits were, and those guys were like, no, this is what you expect to experience. You can go past that. And my brother was like, yeah, that's what I thought, but he wanted to try and stay safe. And by doing that course, really able to allow him to expand his capabilities there in what he deemed to be a safe environment, and make sure he was within his limits. And then, of course, after that first shallow water blackout, talking to another older Spearo, I think it was, mate, you're diving deep. You need to start diving with a buddy. You're pushing the limits. And so that's when he sort of re-looked at everything that he was doing and took it to that next safety level of making sure he was being smarter in the water, because he's got young kids and he didn't want to have an accident. So that was important to him. And that's the sort of things he would start to share with other young Spearos that he found and try and get them to do these courses. And of course, as I mentioned, he started pumping the Noob Spearo podcast, because what's interesting, just talking to him over the last week about his spearing setup and even I picked up on it quickly, listened to a couple of things. He's like, he went and bought this 1400 spear gun because he was wanting to shoot mackerel, and he just went down to Adreno. I was like, can I get a 1400 to shoot big fish? And they're like, yeah, no worries. Here's a 1400. This is a good one. You know, he took it home and, you know, and he's playing around with it and wasn't real happy. And, you know, he just ended up settling back on a 1200, you know, with a, whatever, 6.5 spear. I can't remember. And
7 mil.
And all that. He just worked, you know, after doing all this stuff and he working out all this stuff and testing stuff and changing shafts and all that sort of stuff like that, he just found out that sort of the 1200s like this really good medium. And then, you know, when he starts listening to your podcast, it's like that, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but the 1200 or the 1100 is like the core of the industry. Everyone's got a 1200 and most people find they pull that out because it's a great medium spear for going in caves and shooting in the open water. And,
yeah,
you know, you can't really miss a fish because you had a 1200 and you didn't have a 1400. And like he worked all that stuff out on his own before he found out, you know, like he could have saved so much money if he just listened to you guys from the start and did it right, you know. Like, I'm not saying the Adreno guys sold him a 1400. He went in there to buy one. They sold him one. And, you know, like any business, everyone's happy to just sell it. And but he loves the shop. He's got no disrespect for them. So, but you know, maybe he didn't ask the right questions when he was down there.
Oh, I can relate. Like, in some ways, it doesn't really matter how much good stuff you listen to either. There's some hard lessons you learn yourself with it. It doesn't really matter who you talk to and what you listen to. There's an element of, I think, being a bloke and wanting to learn things and know things for yourself. And so I can understand that. The first time I went into Adreno, I wanted to spend a certain amount on a spear gun, and I did. And they sold me a spear gun. And the guy told me when I bought it, he says, you're going to be back in 6 months, you're going to spend $100 more, and you're going to get the spear gun that I recommend you. And that's exactly what happened. So, and I think there's just the nature of the sport.
No, and yeah, he was talking to me about, I think it was a fairly recent podcast where there was an American shop was on the podcast. And I think one of you asked the question to the shop, said, do you sell any like $100 spear guns? And they said, no, mate, we don't sell any of that rubbish. You know, it's not ethical to use that. And my brother was like, he was so pumped to hear that because he's like, that's the right way to do it. You know, it's all about the ethics of taking humane kills on a fish and being able to secure the fish and get them in the boat as quick as possible. Because, you know, when sharks are lurking, you want to get them out of the water as quickly as possible.
Matt messaged me, you know, like in March, and we just sort of had a few chats, and he just said, you know, like he'd been listening to the podcast and chatting with one of his mates up there who knew me. And so it was really cool. You know, it's always cool to chat with people that are, you know, just really enjoying the podcast and the yarns and stuff. I really liked it. So I had a couple of exchanges with Matt. But, you know, and from the messages, from what you've said and from what his spearing mates have said, like, it sounds like he was a competent dude who was just generally interested, you know, like in the ocean, the broader aspects of spearfishing. He shared that sort of that hunter mindset, and he was always learning new things. And so it seems like even more tragic in some ways because he was just a guy that had a real high awareness about some of the risks that are inherent in what we do.
Yeah, and so I guess that's where I want to talk about next is so. You know, his mate Wayne and him were diving in the Tweed reefs chasing wahoo in April because it had the best visibility. In the first dive, my brother come up and told Wayne he got buzzed by a big bully. He said it come straight at him and turned just before the spear tip and took off. And Wayne asked him if he wanted to get out, and he's like, "Nah, mate, it's all good." Wayne said that there's plenty of bullies in that area. Anyway, a week later, he dove locally. And he's seen what he says is the biggest shark of his life. And he was fairly sure it was a white. He had recalled a distinct line down the side where the white colour underside met the top side colour. And he noticed a few cobia with it. He shot one, reefed it in as quick as he could. And his mate Cliff came up with his knife and shot it and dispatched it. And that was actually posted on the Queensland Spearfishing Facebook page. And he'd asked if others in the area had seen any whites, and I'm pretty sure he told me that he thought it was about 4 meters in length. So, you know, that's quite recently. That's only a while ago. So, you know, and so he's well aware of the in the water. It's not something new to him.
They're out there at the moment. There's I've seen other videos too recently, you know.
Yeah, so just after, I think, I'm not sure if it was like a week later or a week before that, was when the that tiger shark was terrorising the underwater psychos or something? What are they? Spear psychos or something?
Submerged psychos.
That's the one. Yes, yeah, so I think they posted a video of that tiger smashing his fins 2 or 3 times. So I'm not sure if that was like a week after he seen the white or a couple of days before it or something. But you know, all those events were around the same time. So, so me and my brother, we were my wife and his wife, they'd planned to do a cruise trip, and of course with this COVID-19 that got shut down. And me and my wife also had a trip to Bali was planned, and that got shut down as well. And Kayla, his wife, contacted me and said, "Hey, because we can't travel overseas anymore, should we do a trip to Frazer?" And we're like, "Yeah, no worries, that'll be sweet." Because back when we were kids, me and my brother with our parents, we'd go there every year, and pretty much my brother's been going there every year for like, I think last year was like one of the first years he missed doing a trip to Frazer. He loves the place, but I haven't been there for about 23 years, and it was my wife's first time. And so we decided to go up there. We'd spend, it was supposed to be originally 10 days, but it turned out we were only going to do 8 days. And so we're going to do four days at Eurong and go see all the tourist stuff, Lake Mackenzie, Lake Wabi, and the Mackenzie Jetty or Wharf or whatever it's called, or both those things if it's 2 different things. So we did all those things. It was cool and all that. It was a fantastic time. And then we're going to go over to Waddy Point, which is his like fish and stomping ground, and we're going to spend 4 days there, and that's where we were going to be smashing the fish and all that sort of stuff like that. And so yeah, and the whole time we're spinning yarns and talk. He was telling me all about spearfish and stuff and all that sort of stuff like that. And he brought for me a 1200 roller. Now I'm pretty sure it was a Robbie Allen with an aim right roller fitted to the front. I don't know what size rubber on it, but and he had I think he had a Robbie Allen as well. I think it was a 1200, but I don't know. It didn't bother me, whatever. And just good core guns, not too expensive and all that, but did a job, I guess. So and yeah, so we were gonna go out in the water. So first day, I towed my little 4.2 Quintrex wide body dory with a 40 horsepower Yamaha on the back. Of course, it's a Yamaha because they start first time every time. And yeah. So so we towed that up, and the first day we're going to go hit the now you have to forgive me because I don't know the names of all the places. So it's the Marloo wreck. Okay,
I haven't been there, so I don't know either. So
I think it's the Marloo. I think it's the Marloo wreck, which is just north of Waddy Point there, about halfway between there and the Gala Rocks. So, and we went down to launch the boat. You got to go down towards Waddy and launch in off of one of the gutters there because it's a beach launch in the tinny. And when we're down there, these other young Spearos turned up with a little fiberglass tinny on the roof, and they chucked theirs in the water, and they had this like little 8 horsepower Yamaha on there as well, and all the stickers were like ripped off, and it had exposed Yamaha motor. And I was saying, but look at that, I love it, because that's like guys that just get what you need and just get out there doing it. And my brother went over there, introduced himself to him, and was talking for 15 minutes. I was like, hurry up, man, we got there, we had my wife in the boat and his little 8-year-old son, and we're going to go do a quick bit of spearing and get a feed for the night. And I'm terrible in the water, and this is pretty much the first time I've dived in like years. Like, I used to do a bit of anyway. We go out there and I got some. Is it Beauchamp? Is that the brand?
Bochet,
yeah. So I bought these Bochet fins a couple of years ago. Matt was talking about getting me to go out with him, and they're just the big plastic ones. Cost me like $100 or $120, and bought some Adreno socks
because you need socks with the things.
With the open.
I was wearing a long sleeve rash. You got no wetsuit or anything. And anyway, we go out there, we throw the anchor out, and I dive in the water, and he's like, just look, all you got to do, just find a big fish and just spear it for me. I was like, yeah, no worries, I'll do that. And I was swimming around, having a look for fish, looking all over the wreck, and I was seeing this big fish, and if you asked me what it was, I was like, I don't know, a snapper. Just was a big fish. So I was probably, I feel like it was, when I looked at it in the water, I would have said it was about 60 centimetres, but after having seen what I've seen pulling fish out of the water, it was probably close to the 80 or 90 maybe. And I pull the trigger on this gun, and it won't move. It's not moving. Damn it. And I roll the gun, and I see it's got the safety, so I've got to pull the red trigger safety that's on the grip before I can pull the trigger. So I chase this fish down again, and I'm just on the top, and then I finally dive down again, line it up, and my brother said to me, he goes, we've got one request. Do not spear the rocks. Just so I dive down, I'll wait for it to swim out off the top of the rock, and I pull the trigger, and nothing happens. I'm like, what the hell? So I'm looking at the gun, doing what's going on, and then I see the stupid thing's not loaded. So I put the gun up. I grab the is it a trainer
shaft
string? What's the second? You got
the shooting line.
String on grab the shoot line, and I got to pull it back. And I'm like, oh man, this thing is tight, and I can't do it. And I was like, oh man. So anyway, just swim around, find my brother's like, oh, he goes, you shoot anything? I said, you didn't load it. He's like, oh, sorry, yeah, I forgot. And so he loads it for me, and meanwhile, his 8-year-old son, he caught like this, like good sized brim, maybe a 40 centimetre, 45 centimetre brim. He'd speared it like his 8-year-old son. Sometimes he'll carry him down, but he can dive pretty good now. And
awesome.
I think my brother recorded a GoPro and all that sort of stuff like that. And so I swim around, and I find another fish. I can't even remember what the other fish was, and I just pointed the gun at it, pulled the trigger. I missed it by a mile, and I pulled the spear back in, and I'm like flailing around, like just in the water trying to get the string back over the little, like, I'm like, man, how? And I was like, I worked out how to put the string back on. Man, I was pretty exhausted by the end of it. Like, just putting the string back on, and I had it open, had it all done up right, and all right, now I'll go find my brother. And so I go find, and man, just playing around with that string, I swallowed so much water. Like it was, and the water was pretty murky. It was a bit murky. And anyway, I swam back to him. He goes, oh, I see you've got the string on the wrong side of the spear. It needs to be on the top side of the shaft, not the bottom side of the shaft, because I had it in the wrong. So I was like, okay, yep. So he fixed that. He loaded it for me, and I swam out again, and I found something else, and had a spear at it. Because I found these cobia, barracuda outside the thing. I kept trying to find them, but they'd moved from when I got them saw it last.
Yep.
And and I dived down, and they'd run before I get down. I'd come back. Anyway, I found something else and had a crack and missed it by a mile again. And anyway, by the time I put the string back on, man, I was knackered. I was pretty unfit in the water. And I come back to him, and I was like, oh, I've got to get out to water. Anyway, I get out to water, get in the boat. And my brother's like, oh, is everyone done? And I was like, yeah. Anyway, he goes, all right, I'm just going to quickly get us a feed. He turns around, dives down, and like 45 seconds later, comes back with like this big golden trevally. And he goes, oh yeah, took it off him, and I don't know, maybe it's 70, 80 centimetres, I don't know. Just like, it looked like a huge fish to me. And
yeah.
And he's like, oh, we just need to make sure we've got enough fish. I'll go for another quick look. And he's had a what do you call it, with the dropper with the little shiny things hanging off it? The
keeper, like a stringer for like off his float for fish. Oh, a flasher. Yeah. Sorry, a flasher for attracting. Okay, yep.
So he's running around with a flasher the whole time with his son and that. Anyway, when he's gone, I throw up off the side of the boat like I'm crook as a dog, taking in too much water. I'm vomiting everywhere. Anyway, I'm like feel good as by then. Anyway, I don't know. 3 minutes later, 4 minutes later, he comes back in. He's got this huge fish. It's like metre long, And he goes, "That's a kingy." I was like, "Well, what's that?" He goes, "Oh, it's a kingy." Throws it in the water. And he goes, "I'll just have a quick look for something else." He goes, "Is everyone all right?" I said, "Oh," my wife's like, "Oh, he just threw up. He's not feeling real well." I said, "No, just do what you got to do. You know, I'll be all right. I'm having a good time just watching you and learning." And he goes away, and I'll throw up again over the side of the boat. And anyway, he goes away, comes back with nothing else. And he goes away, and his wife said to me when he was out, she's like, "Well, what sort of fish was that?" I said, "Oh, I said it was a kingy." Anyway, we get back into shore, and we you know, doing all whatever. Anyway, someone's like, "Oh, what'd you get?" And I was like, "Oh, we got a kingy." He's like, "That's not a kingy, that's queenfish." I was like, "You said it's a kingy." He's like, "No, I didn't." Anyway, so that was the running joke for the rest of the next couple of days. We're playing cards, and every time someone flicked out a queen, we'd be like, "Oh, it's a kingy," and just ribbing him because he's the one that should know what the fish are called and that. And so then the next day we decide we're going to go back to the Marloo wreck again, and so just the same sort of thing. We dive in there, and this time everyone's in the boat. So we got his wife, my wife, his daughter, his son, and we all go out to anchor off the Marloo wreck. And of course, those Spearo boys are out there again, and I can't remember if it was the first day or second day, but they pulled in a giant trevally as well. And my brother was like, he's like, "Yeah, I want to actually catch up with those guys before we leave. Like, I'll bump in and have a chat to him." I said to him, and no disrespect to the young fella, I know he's probably going to listen to this podcast at some stage, but he's Instagrammed me since. So this is a shout out to you. And I said, "Oh, what sort of level's he at?" He's like, "Yeah, I think he's still a spirit, and find out what it is." What do you say? Spirit and identify it later. And I thought we had a bit of a laugh, and that maybe that's not true, but I was having a good old laugh, and
yeah. Shoot first, identify
that
later.
Morning before we got in the water, that was it. Yeah, shoot first, identify later. And anyway, we're in the water, and this guy comes up to us. He's like, "How do you get into water knowing there's sharks there?" And my brother was like, he goes, "Oh, we're big body, and they'd see, and they'll just typically just move on. They're only interested in fish." And he turns to me, he goes, "What about you?" I said, "I just don't think about it. It's just not, if you think about it, you'd never have it happen." And anyway, so we get out there and go fishing again off the Marloo. This time, visibility was probably a little bit worse. And so I was like, "Man, I want to find that barracuda I saw last time. I want to shoot that," because his son kept going on about barries. He's like, "Yeah, we'll get a barry. Want to get a barry." So I thought they must be really good eating, And we get out there, and the wife and Kayla and the two kids, we did a big snorkel around first. They were snorkeling around, and there's like turtles in the water, and I didn't know at the time, but you could hear the whales like going off in the water. They're going nuts. There's whales everywhere out there, and there was like, this I saw this like 100-kilo Queensland groper, and I had the spear with me, and I was like, I come out the water like, Matt. I was like, "Oh, can I spear a groper?" He's like, "No, do not spear a groper because they're protected." But I sort of already knew that, which is why I asked before I speared it. I didn't want to make a mistake. And there ended up being a big 300-kilo one. Well, Matt said it was about 300 kilos. It was huge, big mountain of a groper swimming around in front of the boat there. Anyway, I see this fish, finally see a good fish, because I've been real conservative because I want to save my energy and make sure I get it this time. Because he said to me, he goes, "Oh, you missed the fish." He's like, "What happened?" I said, "Didn't aim." He's like, "Man, make sure you aim. Look down the shaft." I said, and I was like, "So do I just look down the shaft like I would with a shotgun?" He's like, "Yeah, exactly like that. Just look straight down the shaft. If you can't see the shaft, you're like on point." And anyway, I was swimming around. I finally found what I thought was a reasonable, good-looking size fish. And if you ask me how big it was in the water, I would have thought it was about 40, 50 centimetres. And I dived down there, and I just aimed, wait for it to come off towards me, and I was aiming, speared this thing straight through behind the pectoral fin. And,
Beautiful.
The spear went through and went into the sand, and I saw it, and the flopper didn't open up. It stayed shut, and I was like, "Oh, no." So I dived down, and I grabbed the spear either side of the fish, and I come out the water with it above my head, like, yeah!
Beautiful.
Like, beautiful. My first speared fish, and I swam over to him, and I was like real chuffed, and he's like, He's like, he goes, it's a morwong, or moe, like mowong.
Beautiful.
I was like, yeah,
Love it.
sweet. He goes, what, something brim? What's it called?
Platinum snapper or
And he goes, yeah, that's
blubber lip
what we
brim.
call them. A bubble lip brim, that's what he said. He goes, that's what we call a mother-in-law's fish. So I was like, what's a mother-in-law's fish? He's like, that's one you give to the mother-in-law because they're not real good eating. I was like, yeah, no.
Yep.
He's like, no. He goes, no, don't worry. It'll be right. As long as we eat it fresh, it'll be fine. And so we threw that in the boat, and he and I was like, but this time I was like, I'll reload the gun myself. And actually, no, it was the next time. Anyway, so I go to reload this gun, and I'd like try to reach up and pull it and pump it in to get it on my chest. I'm like, man, this thing is too tight. So I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll put it on my thigh, right against my thigh, my hip, and I reached up with both strings and I pulled it right down, and I'm like trying to look to see how far off the notch off the spear I am. I'm like, pull it. I was like, man, I must be nearly there. Next thing, the spear slips off my hip, and the spear runs out the back behind me, and it runs my fingers straight up the thing and then out the end of the roller. And I was like, looking at my two fingers, just thinking, I was in so much pain. So I had to go find my brother again. He was miles off the wreck with his flash unit, trying to flash up some more big fish, you know. And I get over there, and he goes, he's like, oh, do you want to shoot a barracuda? I've got one here for you. I said, yeah, sure. And he goes, here, give me your gun. He quickly gives me his gun, and he goes, I'll turn the GoPro on and we'll record it and we'll get it on GoPro. And I dive down and I aim at it real good. I shoot this barracuda, and it just goes and goes whizzing off. And my brother, just as quick as a whip, just goes, loads this roller gun and just finishes it off for me. And then he pulls the spear out, and he pulls the first spear out because I only just got it through the skin. He's like, I don't know how he kept that on the line. Gives me the fish, and he's like, okay, what I want you to do, dive down as deep as you can. I'll get some footage of you coming up with the fish and hold it out the water. And so we did that, tried to do some trendy footage and lifted out the water. And I was like, got this barracuda, and put it in the boat. And Kayla's like, she's like, oh, yeah, they're really good. For burley. And I'm like, oh man, I've been stitched up here. This is a classic, you know. So, so what happened? So the night before we cooked up that queenfish, and we deep fried it in panko crumbs, and we ate that as family. It was really good. Anyway, he texts my mate Wayne. I didn't know this till later, and he goes, queenfish are to fish what packet pasta is to real pasta. It's funny, but I didn't know that. I thought it was really good. So, anyway, so that was really good. And I was asking him all these questions about why people come to Frazer Island to catch tailor and all that. And he's like, oh, that's all the Westies, you know, they want to come in and be a hero, catch all these fish and look good on, drink a beer every time they catch a fish. And he's like, they're terrible eating, but you can catch lots of them easily. And, you can look like a hero coming back with all this esky full of fish. And, and we're talking about how, that's really why it's important. You can select your fish and do that. And I was like mucking around with him. I was like, all the fishermen, they're fat and lazy. And they don't want to get in the water, So they just make excuses, and their big excuses, classic, is that there's sharks in the water. They don't want to get in there and get amongst it. So, and that's the stitch up. That's the problem, is that because they keep saying that, people keep believing it. And what's interesting is I phoned the cop today, and he said to me, he goes, I haven't been watching the radio, haven't been watching the news. He goes, it's all lies. It's all lies. He goes, and I said, yeah, I said, lots of people swim those waters, don't they? He's like, man, there's spear fishermen in there all the time spear fishermen in there. Like, he's like, and it's the first fatality in 100 years on Frazer Island. Like, no one's been taken there, and there's plenty of people spearfishing off there. On our way out to the rocks there was, my brother said to me, actually, I'll cut that short. So that next morning, so the third morning in a row, so it's our second last night, it's his daughter's birthday, so we're eating pancakes and ice cream for breakfast and all that sort of stuff like that. And we're going to go over to Indian Head, and he wants to do a bit of fishing over there, because I'll tell you why he wants to hit over there is, you might have seen on his Facebook page 5 years ago, they were up on top of Indian Head looking down into the water, and he's like, oh my gosh, there's 2 huge mackerel down there. And so he just raced down to his car, got his gear out, put his gear on, jumped out in the water, swam out the rocks, and he smashed this. What his best estimate is 28 kilo mackerel. It's like, as long as he is, it's huge. He's struggling to hold it. It's bigger than his son, and it's a pretty impressive fish. And I think it ate really well. And so he's got a lot of pride for fishing that spot. He fished that spot every time he went there. Anyway, we were joking that morning. I'm forgetting all these good bits. So the first day, because we'd been on the island for like 5 days, neither of us had shave. So he's like, oh, quick, we've got to shave our moustaches off so that get a good suction with the mask. So we're both like shaving the mask. I'm feeling like a pro shaving my moustache off. Anyway, he's getting because he's got like no soap or whatever, and it's like thick as moustache, and he's blowing out the back of the razor trying to get the hair. He's like turned around, he's like, and then there must have been like this little bit of plastic sticking out the back of the razor. He literally cuts his lip open like a centimetre with the back of the razor trying to blow it out, and he just quickly rips the skin off. And next thing, his lip bleeding profusely, and he's running around sucking it in. It literally bled all day. So like, we're just joking about it, because like a couple of months earlier, his son had literally gone in. We're all over one night for dinner, and his son had gone in, grabbed a razor, decided to shave his lip, cut his lip like in the same spot. So we're having a good old laugh. And anyway, we went over to Champagne Pools, and it was a bit busy and full of sand. It wasn't real good. We'll come over back during high tide. We'll go over to Indian Head. We'll hit the water there, just do a quick fish. And so we went out onto the rocks there as a family, and got a nice family photo out there on the rocks. And we come back, and my brother's like, yeah, let's go out there. It looks pretty good. So we got all our gear and walked out onto the rocks, and he's like, oh, this is a good spot to launch. So we get there, and he starts putting all his gear on. He's already got his weight belt on that, and I'll put my weight belt on. I go to put my socks on. I'm like, oh man, I forgot my socks. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, man, I've got to go back for my socks. He goes, no, just test the flippers, see if you can wear them. I was like, no, man, they're pretty loose. He's like, no, just test them. I'll put them on. I was like, dude, they're pretty loose. And he goes, look, just jump in the water, try them on in the water, and if they're not too loose, we're only going to go for an hour and a half. It'll be quick, and we're going to just spear a few fish and just put them on the line, and then come back. Actually, but before I carry on, sorry, because I forgot some of the story. So this day before, after we got those other fish, after I got those other fish, the terrible fish, we decided to go over to Nagala Rocks and see if we could have a hunt over there. So we dropped the girls off. We went over to Waddy Point. It was all washed out with sand. It was too shallow and nothing there. So we went over to Nagala Rocks, and we found some bait on my sounder. So he decided to dive in, have a bit of a look, and there was nothing there. And while he was in the water, I had another vomit. He comes up to me and he goes, Rob, I think you get seasick. And I was like, yeah, probably, mate. I was like, just keep fishing. I said, I'll be right. And the whole time he was fishing around Nagala Rocks, he was holding that barracuda in his arms, and he's got his knife, and he's just chopping off, burling up the water, running around with the flash, burling up. And after I got him sick, he goes, oh, how sick are you? I was like, oh, no, I'm all right, I'm not too bad. Well, can you keep burling up this barracuda for me? Try and track the fish in. I'll keep swimming around, see when I have a look. I was like, yeah, no worries. I said, I don't want to. I'm having fun just watching you do what you do. Anyway, so in the short amount of time he's been in the water, he's pretty much stripped one whole side of this barracuda. It's a pretty big fish too. And I'm sitting there cutting up, and I'm like, oh, man, I feel sick as, and I'm cutting up this and throwing up. He's like, try and get the piece as small as possible. And so I'm doing what I can to make it as small as possible. And anyway, how he's finished up, and I'm side straddle on this 270 litre esky in the middle of the boat, and he decides to pass me up the spear. So I reach over, pass up the spear, and I put it down beside me. Sort of while I got my back turned, he decides he's going to push up on the side of the boat. But I wasn't ready to off-counter the balance on the small boat. And I'm like leaning, and then next thing, that esky slides to his side of the boat. The boat sinks right down. It's about 5 centimetres, 10 centimetres from going under the water on the side of the boat. And I go over the edge, but I'm side straight on my leg's going to be stuck between the side of the boat and the esky. And so I just quickly turned and tried not to break my knees sideways, and I flicked it anyway. I ended up smashing my calf, broke my toe just about, and I end up in the drink. And he's laughing his head off, and we're having a good time. And anyway, I get back in the boat, and he's taken all his kit off, and we're about to leave. And I said, I don't know where that knife's gone. He's like, what? I said, I can't see the knife on the ground, and I don't know where it was when I went over the edge. He's like, oh, no. So he has a quick look, and he looks over the bed. He's like, oh, there it is down there. So he puts all his gear back on, dives in, grabs the knife, comes back. And so that was the end of fishing for that day. And we didn't end up eating the mother-in-law fish. It was that was to be taken home and donated to someone special. And anyway, so the next day, like I said, so we start walking around the rocks, and when we're coming back, there was literally Spearo in the water, and he had these bright yellow sea hornet fins, and he's like, Rob, that's the fins I was telling you about. That's the ones I started with. And we were having a little chuckle that this noob was out there in a pair of sea hornet fins, having a good time, and he's coming back in, but it didn't look like he had any fish. And I remember he had this red spear gun. Anyway, it turns out that guy is actually one of the rangers from the island.
Oh,
They're having
okay.
a bit of a spear. So that's what the cop told me. So that was pretty cool. And anyway, we go around the rocks, and my brother says this is a good launch spot, and I had this saga. Anyway, so I jump in without the socks. I'll flick them around a bit, and I'm like, all right. Anyway, so my brother says we only got one float. So got the big red Adreno float. He's running a reel gun with a reel on his belt as well. He's like, I'll just connect everything up. We'll roll the float line up, and we'll go out around the corner past the fishermen. Then we'll let the float line go. Well, it won't get tangled up in the rocks, and we'll start fishing from there. And so we go out round past the fishermen, and I remember one of them dropped down on this little platform, and I was like, oh, you idiot, you're going to drown. I'll wash off the rocks there. And anyway, we go around the rocks, go under the fishing lines, and they, of course, they're all watching us, And my brother lets go the float line, unhooks the spear, loads the spear for me this time as well, and we just start swimming around, and visibility's not too bad, and I see this little turtle come swimming out. It's real beautiful, that turtle's in the water there, and I can hear the whales this time. I can hear the whales in the water, and we don't even go very far, maybe 10, 15 meters. And my brother says to me, he goes, oh, look, see that black cloud? That's a school of jewfish. And I was pretty sure jewfish are pretty good at eating. I know that they're a prize fish for the guys down in New South Wales. And he's like, what I want you to do is I'm going to turn the GoPro on again. I want you to dive down there and spear the biggest fish of the thing. And so I'm like, yep, okay. He's like, you ready? And I get under the water, and I suck in a bit of air, try and get ready. And I keep the snorkel still in my mouth, because I'm like, that's what I do. Anyway, I dive down. I get about halfway to the fish, and I come up out of the water as fast as turbo, because I got a lung capacity of about 9 seconds, And I was like, oh, don't worry about it, Matt. I said, you dive down and get one. Anyway, he dives down, and he mate, this is the first time I got to watch him spear.
Yep.
He dives down to the bottom, and it's only probably 3 or 4 meters at the most, maybe even shallower. Visibility is about, I want to say it's about 4 meters, certainly was in my goggles. And he dives down there, and he's just floating on the sand, and he's just there still, just reminding me of watching a cheetah in the long grass, just not moving. And he's told me, just go down there, be patient. The fish will come back. They'll come to you. And he's laying down there still as anything. When he floated down, there was this massive stingray, and it swam off out from underneath him. And he's still laying there. Another massive stingray, big black one, swims over the top of him. He's just not moving, just staying down there, holding his breath. And I look and to the right, and these other big dewies come past. And I reckon this jewfish was about 1.5 meters. It was huge and come past. And there's a pair of them. The other one was maybe 10 centimeters shorter. And the both of them swim directly in front of his goggles, like 10 centimeters in front of his goggles. And he just stays there like a cat, just poised on the one whatever one he's looking at. And I can't even see what he's looking at. Anyway, he's still there poised. And then I look over to my right, and there's some more barracuda come down. So I tried to shoot one of the big ones, but it wouldn't get off the rocks. And because I wasn't allowed to shoot off the rocks, I didn't shoot. And of course, when it come around to in front of him, I can't shoot the jewfish near him because it's going to spear him. And I saw these other two big barracuda come in. So I dived down, hold my breath, poised, aiming straight down the shaft as straight as I can, waiting for it to come out onto the sand. Comes out on the sand, and I hear just before I pull the trigger, my brother shoots a fish, and I go, and I smash this jewfish straight through the back of the head from the top, because remember, I'm floating at the top pretty much, like just straight through the top of the head. It goes straight behind the gills. I saw the flopper come out, and I'm like, yeah, I've got this fish. And I'm like going to the top, and I'm pulling in this fish, and I'm like, yes, sweet, I'm get to catch this big dewie, and my brother's probably got a dewie in the line, and this is going to be a good time. And I come to the surface, and then next thing I just hear, blah, blah, blah. I was like, what? And then I look over, and I'm like, what? And I'm like pulling in the fish, and it's like 3 meters of line. I'm not to the shaft yet. And then he just goes, shark attack. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I've been hit. It's like shark attack. I've been bit by a shark. And then I like in awe, I'm in panic, and I just sort of drop the line, and I just start swimming. And he's like, get to the rocks. And so I just start swimming for the rocks, and like I'm swimming, and I look under the water, and I can just see he's got this cut in his leg that's like 7 inches long. It's about 1.5 inches wide on his shin, on his left shin, on the inside, on the front shin. And I can just see this big pillow of blood. It's like 3 to 4 meters long. It's 1 meter in diameter. And I'm like, oh my God, my brother's been hit by a shark, and I'm in the water. There's blood in the water. It's still in the water. And I just start swimming, and then I start swimming on my back, and I'm flipping my flippers, trying to keep my head under there, trying to see where the shark's going to come from. And my brother's like, because when he like literally like 4 or 5 meters from the rocks, like we're still really close to rocks, and the fishermen are right there watching us. And he's like, call an ambulance. There's a shark attack. I've been bitten by a shark. And he comes up to the rocks, and like I'm like, I've got to help him get out of the rocks. And like at the same time, I'm like, I'm going to get attacked by the shark, and I'm like stressing. I'm trying to help him up, and a wave comes up, and one of the fishermen, I don't know if he ripped his shirt off, but he was like trying to jump in the water, and he's like reaching out, and my brother dives up out the water, and the guy tries to reach down, falls short by like 2 foot, and my brother slides back down the rocks, and he has another go, jumps right up, and he's still too short, falls short of the guy trying to lean down. It's too much of an angle and all that. You know, I swim around the back of him. I'm like trying to push him up the rocks. I swim around the back of him. I find a really good foothold, and I'm like standing there, and I've got like maybe my waist out up, and I'm like, Matt, come here, I'll push you up. But he sort of dives in the water to go swim around the rocks, and I'm like saying, Matt, come here. And then I realised, man, he's limp, and so I just dive in over to him, and I just like get his weight belt off, just make sure I get his weight belt off, and then I can maybe help paddle him out. And I feel around his waist, and I'm like, and then I feel those 2 big buttons on his wetsuit. So he's just wearing a wetsuit top with board shorts down the bottom. And I feel those 2 big buttons, and I'm like, okay, he's already ditched his weight belt. And I just roll him over, and then the waves are smashing me against the rock, and I'm just trying to keep his head above water because he's limp. And I keeping his head above the water, trying to keep his head above the water, and I'm like starting to drown. You know, I'm a pretty good swimmer, but I'm against the rocks, and I got my brother in my arms, and then finally sort of something happened, and I was able to get him under. So I reached from behind him, went under his left arm with my other arm, like under his armpit, got his head out the water, and he put his arm along my arm, and he put his hand on top of my hand, and he squeezed it, and he rolled his head over. He had thrown his mask. I still had my mask on like an idiot. He rolls his head over, and he looks me in the eyes. And what had happened that morning, we were driving to get some ice cream for his daughter, and he was eating some sultanas that were just a snack on the floor in the front of my car, and he was smashing all these sultanas, and he started choking his lungs out on this sultana, And he looks over at me while he's choking. He goes, "Tell my wife I love her." And then he coughs out, and this massive sultana comes out of his hand, and we laughed our heads off. It was so funny. And when he looked me in the eyes, I just knew that he said to me, "Tell my family I love them." And then his eyes rolled back in his head, and his hand went limp, and I felt the life go out of him. And I just grabbed him, and I just started swimming as hard as I could to get him to the beach. And I was swimming and swimming, and as I come around that plateau that the young guy was standing on, that I said before that I thought was going to drown, I saw it then. It was like a metre up, and I was getting bashed by the waves. And I believe God assisted me. I told you we're Christians, and it was all my power. I just pushed, because I had him round under the arms, grabbed him around the waist, and I just boosted him up out of the water, and I threw him up on top of the rocks in the wave surge. And the wave started to come down with the water, and his body started to drag down the rocks. And I just went down his leg, and it was his bloody leg, I realised, because it was his left leg. And I'm like trying to keep pushing him, and I'm like flippering as hard as I can to push him up, holding him by the ankle. And I'm like, and I see one of the boys jump down and grab his wrist. I was like, "Have you got him?" And they're like, and I see that they've got him, because I see both arms get pulled up, and I just went down. I went limp, and I just was like, just left him there on the rocks with those guys. And I just was like swimming, and I was like, after that, immediately, like, I felt like all the adrenaline left my body. And I just rolled on my back, and I was like, "Oh my God, the shark's still in the water. I've got to get out of the water." So I start flipping as hard as I can, and I realize I've still got my weight belt on, and it's this Sea Hornet weight belt, like from the 40s or 50s. It's like antique heirloom. And I just pulled the thing and just ditched it with a 2-4 pound fat man weights on it. And I just started swimming back to shore, and got to a point where, I was maybe 200 or 300 meter swim, I think. And I got back to shore, and I threw my gloves off, took my flippers off, and I walked back into the water, and my legs were gas, man. I was done. This lady's come up, and as I'm walking, see my brother's wife run across the rocks, and she just takes off around the corner. And she's like, sit down. I sat down, and I was gassed, man. I sat down. I just lay back on the sand. I remember looking up at the trees on the cliff edge, and there's this massive eagle nest. And I was like, "Oh, eagle nest." And I was like, "Man, why am I looking at an eagle nest? Like my brother's dying, And I tried to get up, but I was done, man. I think it was shock and all that sort of stuff like that, and sat there for like what felt like 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. And I walked back, and I hugged his kids, and they said, "What's happened?" And I just told them, "Oh, I think he's been cut on the rocks." I had to lie to them at that point, and they made me sit down. I was in shock, and I was just shaking. And and then after a while, I must have been there for a while, and the ambulance turned up, and they ran around the rocks, and from then I was like, I have to know what's happened to my brother. And I got the strength back, and put another shirt on, tried to walk around the rocks. They wouldn't let me walk around the rocks until the helicopter had dropped off the paramedics, and they dropped the paramedics off, and the helicopter left, and they let me go around the rocks. And he was not in a good way. And the boys and these ladies and this nurses and off-duty nurse and that, they were working on him as hard as they could. There's a machine doing its thing. And just I really thank those guys for doing everything they could. And he was dead before he came out the water. I knew it when he looked me in the eyes. I knew that he'd passed, and it was a pretty painful experience and pretty traumatic, because I feel like we both could have got taken by a shark. I remember when I was coming back in, I just was like, I wished it was me that had got hit, because I didn't leave 2 kids behind. But at the same time, I felt guilty then, because I still got a wife as well that loves me. And and maybe if it was me that got taken, maybe my brother would have felt guilty forever for the rest of his life, because he might have thought that he talked me into going into the water, but he didn't, man. I went in there with him. Like, I wanted to have fun and experience life with him, and we had a really good time, and it's pretty chilling. Like, I remember, and I was sitting there looking out to sea, and these whales were just jumping up out the water, splashing, and then I swear, man, that same small turtle I seen comes up to the water, and it flapped its flipper on the top of the water. Everyone was paying their respects to my brother, and it was so painful, so beautiful, and and that's it, man. That's the story of how I lost my brother, and and I just worry that it's going to affect the spearing community, and he wouldn't want that. He's a joker, he's a laugher, and I don't know if much can be learned from this experience, but
just chatting with you, Rob, it honestly sounds like it could happen to anyone, man. Like, it doesn't sound like, anything, you guys did anything untoward, or, like you weren't idiots for being out there. It wasn't some crazy, like, jumping into some madness, and, it just sounds like you guys were spearfishing, shore diving off a popular location, and this freak event happened, and your brother copped it, and it could have happened to any of us.
Yeah, man, and of course, like, when people start finding out and stuff, like, everyone was like, just wanted to know, because I think they all knew he was there without another Spearo, and they were worried he was in the water on his own, and I was just glad that I could be there in the water, and I was there to help him and pull him out of the rocks to give him the respect that he deserved. Like, I could have easily just swum away like a chicken under the fear of, I'm a novice, man. I can't hold my breath for 5 seconds.
Honestly, Rob, it sounds like you had a real good crack, man, and it sounds like you did everything within your power. And I just want to just encourage you, man. Like, don't. I think sometimes when guys hear about shit happening, our natural reaction is to want to problem solve and to work out, how we could have done it differently, whatever, and it's like part of our I think our hearts is to try and fix things. But honestly, it sounds like, with everything that happened and with your experience level and all the rest of it, sounds like you did a phenomenal job, man. And I just want to express that.
Yeah, man, look, I don't regret anything I did. I did everything I could. I wasn't an experienced spearfisherman, and and that's it. And maybe he should have been wearing his wetsuit pants. Maybe that could have saved him, because I spoke to
in summer months I dive in a pair of board shorts with a rash top, and a lot of people are the same in summer. And like, if you're in warm water, it's completely understandable. So
yeah, and so I'm comfortable. Like, the one thing I would say to everyone is, like I said, I'm a born again Christian. I'm baptized, spirit filled, and speak in tongues, and my brother was too. We both go to church twice a week, and we're right with our Maker. And I know when the Lord returns, I'll be there with him again. That's what gives me the peace. That's what is able to pull me through this. And if there's only one thing I can say is be right with your Maker. And and he would tell people, get out there and have fun. It was only 3 weeks earlier that my mum asked, he's like, why do you keep getting in the water? And he said, look, I've taken a lot of fish from the sea. If a fish takes me from the sea, that's the circle of life, and that's the reality of it. So, that I remember this stupid reporter asking me, he said, what would you have to say to anyone that wants to go to Frazer Island? And I said, man, do it, get out there, have fun, get in the water, enjoy yourself. And he said, what about the sharks? I said, mate, there's been one fatal shark attack in the last 100 years. The odds are really good that nothing's going to happen. More people have died from dingoes on Frazer Island than have died from sharks. But they go and put dingo fences up because people are too stupid to be able to protect themselves from the dingoes. So if you can't enjoy yourself and be out there, then don't go out there. you know. But you know, it's just nature. That's just the way it is. There's not any reason why he got hit and I didn't get hit, or why the spear fisherman that was in on the water on his own didn't get hit. You know, like it's just the way it is, and I'm okay with that.
I'm stoked that you guys have a strong faith and a belief in something eternal. Like, I think it definitely makes a lot of difference when you're processing grief. And I mean, I'm stoked you've come and shared the story. And sometimes, you know, when I explore near misses and accidents and things that happen in the ocean, a lot of it is about, you know, taking away and learning from it what we can. And sometimes we can't, man. Just shit happens. And honestly, like, it sounds like, you know, he's a top bloke and he was doing exactly what he loved, and he was diving off the shore and taking a newbie spearfishing, which is I love doing as well, you know, and you, I'm sure you appreciated it, you know, and it's honestly,
I loved every minute of it except for those last few seconds. You know, it was, man, when I was sitting there watching him poise like a cat, and when I shot that spear, when I speared that fish, that big Dewey, after hearing his spear go off, man, I was prepared to celebrate. You know, it was going to be a good day. It was going to be really good, and I was really pumped for that. And that's what I'll take away, and that's what I'll hold with me forever. So, you know, it's really good. And you know, will I get back in the water? Probably not. I'll just stick to my land-based hunting for the moment. I don't like fish anyway, so why am I going to go chase that? So it's but you know, I've got respect for that. Everyone else that wants to get out there, and I don't want to discourage people from getting out there and harvest fish and choosing what they want to take from the water. And you know, I just encourage that. And you know, it's just how we deal with these experiences sometimes is what's important, not what happens from it. So that's all I wanted to say, and I just wanted to share my experience with the spearing community. And you know, we're hurting, we're in a lot of pain, and but I needed to talk about it. I needed to get it off my chest. And you know, he loved you guys and listened to you guys all the time driving his car, and I just wanted to give back to the community that gave so much to him. And I just think that, I don't know, if someone can take some small snippet of information or give the spearing community some kind of peace of mind after a traumatic experience, you know, that's some kind of success for me.
Can I be awful and ask just a couple of specific questions? Would that be all right?
Yeah, let's try it out.
What do you know what species it was?
I don't know exactly, but our best calculations, it was probably a bully, and possibly not even that big. It just come in from straight outside, just come in, one bite, gone. Like, so
did it come up from underneath, or was it up in the water column and then it sort of come in?
Okay, so I never saw the shark, right? All I saw was a ball of sand, like, and I just thought my brother had a big fish, and but look, it was just a big dark grey. From what I know, it was just a big dark grey shark, and it just seemed to come out from the ocean, hit him, one bite, taste of blood, take off, and yeah, and it hung around for a bit. I think that's what the fisherman said. It was like right behind us the whole time, but then it just sort of slowly swam off. So it was quite shallow there at the time too, and apparently in the past there's always been like a shelf. The sand comes up and there's a bit of a shelf, and my mates have seen the bullies hanging around on the top of the shelf just out past the rocks. So
what do you think the viz was?
So my best guess was like 4 meters. That's all I could see, but maybe that's just my cheap foggy goggles. Because when my brother said that black cloud, I couldn't even see the fish, you know, like till I dived right down. So maybe 6 meters, and it was only shallow, man. Only like probably 3 or 4 meters. Like, yeah. But that for me as a noob spearo, that's pretty deep. I can't dive down, swim back from that. So,
man, it sounds common to a lot of Brisbane diving, to be honest, especially like within the bay or close to inshore Sunshine Coast, like, and you know, hunting over sand, and then you might deal with a ledge or some structure or something. But one thing I do notice is in poor visibility, bull sharks are really cocky, and they even the bigger ones and the smaller ones, they just seem to lose a lot of their fear. And I mean, it is kind of their MO to bite and identify, a little bit like we were joking about earlier about spear and identify. I think bull sharks are guilty of it, so that's awful.
I spoke to my other two mates, my brother's mates, and they saw the conditions on the GoPro and stuff like that from the previous footage, and which was similar to that same time. And they said that man, that conditions look good. They said they'd dive there every day of the week under those conditions. That nothing unusual. It was shallow. It looked safe as, and they said they wouldn't be spooked by those conditions at all. And
like I said, I'd be diving it too, and I think probably 90% of the people that listen to this podcast would as well. And like I said, like my initial thing, it's like, it sounds like it could have happened to anyone, because I think most of us would have been out and spearfishing in those conditions and having a bloody good time doing it.
Yeah. Like my brother done previously, like I said, that's probably his biggest fish he got off that same headland, only maybe 50 metres further down around the rocks, 28 kilo mackerel. And this is something we're joking about, that literally the day before, he said to me, he goes, because he's got his big boat, and he said to me, he goes, man, this is on the way out to Nagala Rocks actually the previous day. He goes, man, if I get the fish of a lifetime in a $5,000 borrowed tinny and my 100K boat is sitting at home, I'm going to be spewing. I said, ready to spew. So, yeah,
that's
and
awesome.
we just thought we had a good time. We had a good laugh, and we shared a lot of stories, and and he taught me a lot of stuff about spearfishing that I'll never forget it. And look, I'll probably listen to a few more podcasts, and because you guys tell a good story and have a good laugh, and I appreciate you letting me come on and share my experience. And I have enjoyed it, and probably wasn't as comical as I would have liked, but it is what it is, and I just want to say thanks for letting me share the story, because maybe it's not the sort of thing that people really want to hear, or maybe it's a sad story, but I just had to share it.
Man, it's a real honour to have you, Rob, and it's awesome to honour Matt's memory and to really explore sort of what happened, and not for the interests of getting mass public attention, but just sharing actually what happened. And I'm stoked you would reach out and we could do this thing. I've had a quick look at Matt's Facebook, and there's a ton of messages flowing in from him. He was a guy that was much loved, and I think when someone's gone, you truly start to appreciate what kind of person they were and the legacy they left. And just from the looks of it, and I didn't know Matt well, but I know some of his friends, and I know just from the brief exchanges in his Facebook, like he seemed like a top man, and it's awesome to be able to sort of pay tribute to him and chat with you about it.
Oh, thanks very much, man. So the boys have just set up a GoFundMe for my brother. So I'll share those details with you after the show. And look, it's I guess we're okay with everything, but my brother was an aircon mechanic, and he worked for himself, and he had a good business. But with him not being there, obviously, he can't be there supporting his family. And if anyone wants to show some kind of appreciation, and people obviously can't be there for us, if they want to chip in $1 or $2, that would be appreciated. But I'm not reaching out my hand and asking for people to help. I'll look after my brother's family as best I can, but I know that the only reason we create it is because people have been asking us to create it, and so we've created it. The one thing I would like to do for my brother is I'm going to get a design made up, and I want to get like a picture of the goggles and his GoPro, and like crazy camouflage hoodie, and a spear in his hand, and I think if I could sell a few shirts with Matt Tratt written on it, get a couple of Spearos rocking that,
the day I walk through the supermarket and see someone wearing that shirt, that will make me really happy. That would be cool.
Man, I'll be one of the first to buy one. That'd be awesome to honour Matt in that way. And I'm going to link up your GoFundMe. I'm going to link up your T-shirts if you get them going. And noobspearo.com/Matt, M-A-T-T. And the GoFundMe there will be there. The shirts will be there. And I'll link up you as well, Rob. And I know you got your own podcast as well. But, man, really, like I said, it's just a real honour to just share in his story and his spearfishing journey. And I mean, even though, yeah, so it's rough, it's special. So thank you.
No, thanks very much, man. I appreciate it. And if you ever want to catch up with me again and do a follow up, I'm probably more than happy to do so. And I just wish the spearfishing community all the best. And you guys got my support as well. And I know my brother would be all about that. And that's what I want. That's what I love. And I wish all the best to his mates, the spearfishing mates. They're the ones, they're hurting really hard because I guess the reality is it could have been any one of them, could have been in the water with him and either had to go through that or be the person to experience it. And I'm glad it was me. I think that's the best thing to give everyone peace of mind. So
yeah, cool. Well, love and prayers from all of us in the spearfishing community. If I can be a spokesperson at one point in my life, that would be it. Rob, man, absolute pleasure to have you join the Noob Spearo podcast and share a bit of Matt's story. Can people come and find you or connect with you anywhere, Rob, and just offer you any messages as support or anything like that?
Yeah, they can find me on Hunt Shoot Off Road on Instagram, Hunt Shoot Off Road on Facebook. I guess everyone knows my name, which is Rob Tratt. You can find me on Facebook there as well. And probably better off contacting me either via Instagram or my personal Facebook. And, I'll try and answer as many messages as I can, but I'm only one man and I don't have anyone doing it for me. So,
fantastic.
Yeah, but I'm available and I appreciate it.
Don't feel any obligation to get back to messages at the moment. It's a tough thing you're moving through. So,
thanks very much, Isaac. Appreciate it.
So, Rob, we caught up last night. It's good to touch base with you again because, as is frequently the case, a lot of people I chat with remember things the day after they wanted to chat about and touch on, so it's good to be able to connect with you again. So there was a few things you wanted to sort of go over or re-clarify?
Yeah, so me and my brother, we used to always watch the Young Bloods.
Yep.
I don't watch it anymore. I think the channel has changed direction from what I used to enjoy about it. But me and my brother used to sit there and watch it, and his son would be sitting there and watch it, and my brother and his son would be like, oh, that's a queenfish, that's a coral trout, and that's a this and that's a that. And we're there watching all the things, and I said to my brother, I was like, oh, that's a G-fish. He's like, which one? And he goes back, we watch it there, just there. Oh, man, you missed that big G-fish. And then we're playing through, and I was like, oh, that's another good G-fish. And my brother just starts laughing his head off. He's like, a G-fish. And then his son goes, what's a G-fish? And I said, a good fish, a really good fish. And of course it was the chicks in the G-strings. And so we always would watch the Young Bloods. We're watching, of course, the chicks in the bikinis would come on and be like, we'd just wait till it clicked off of the chick and like, oh, G-fish. Yeah, nice. And our wives were there, and we'd all be laughing and have a carry on. And anyway, there was a story. He was he went over to the Moreton Bay on the wreck over there, and we're always joking about this, and he's over there on the Moreton Bay wreck, and he's like snorkeling around. I don't know if he's spearfishing or not. I think, can you spearfish there? I don't know. Anyway, he's over there, and there's this chick on a stand-up paddleboard in a G-string paddling through the thing, and there's these other 3 or 4 blokes there, and their wives are there with them, and they're paddling around, and one pokes his head out the water, and he's just like, eyes are goggling at this chick. My brother goes, oh, did you see the big G-fish, did you? And he's like, sorry, what? Because he just didn't even hear what my brother said. He goes, did you see the big G-fish? And he goes, oh, the G-fish. And then he turns around to his mates. He goes, boys, quick, get over here. There's a massive G-fish. It's the best thing you've ever seen. And like, so all the boys are like, oh, G-fish. And they're like, well, having a look at the G-fish. And of course, they're swimming around following the G-fish all through the wreck. And my brother was sharing me that story, and it was just classic. And, you know, when we used to go up to Frazer Island as kids, my uncle Jace, he was like always part of the trips up there, and he would always be like the lead car, and they'd always come over the radio, white pointers, and that was code for there was some titties on the beach, you know. They're always topless. So when we're up there at Fraser on the weekend and we're driving up, and my brother goes, not many white pointers out here, but there seems to be some signs of some good G-fish. You know, so we're driving around going, you know, G-fish in the water here. There's a bit of a school of them, you know, if you had more than one. And anyway, that morning that we rocked up to Indian Head, we're getting our gear out the ute, and this like 100 series Land Cruiser pulls up with some backpackers in it. These chicks get out, and I look over there, and I said to my brother, looked over to him, I said, looks like the G-fish are out. It's going to be a good day. And I said to my wife, I said, Tab, did you see the G-fish over there? And she's like literally standing on the side steps of the Land Cruiser on the driver's side, leaning over into the passenger side of the vehicle, you know, full shot. And she just goes, she's like, you idiot. I was like, well, when are you going to get a pair of swimmers like that? And, you know, me, Matt and Kayla, everyone's laughing their heads off. And I was like, you know, that's when we just grabbed our kit and we headed out. And, yeah, it was just, you know, that's something that is always going to be special. We'll always joke about with our friends and stuff is the G-fish. And, you know, if I could get that saying to catch on, that'd be pretty cool.
Oh, I think you've already got me to take off on it. So that's awesome, Rob.
Yeah, that might be another good one for a T-shirt.
A G-fish. Oh, I like it. I'll see what I can do. I was having to think about things this morning as well, and I had a couple more questions about sort of what happened. Do you mind if I ask you a couple more about it?
No, that's all right. Go for it.
It sounds really impersonal to start asking you like this, but I mean, did the shark come in once, and was that it?
Just came in, bite, left.
Yeah, right.
Like it still hung around in the water behind us, apparently.
Okay. So the line fisherman could see it? So
one of the line fishermen got a little bit of iPhone footage, but I seen it. It's rubbish. You can't even see anything really. But I tried asking the line fishermen. They're pretty choked up. They couldn't say much, but they said like they could see it swimming around in the blood behind us.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how long it's hang around, but the shark just come in, bit him once quick on the leg, but by the looks flipped, like because he's in the water with the fish like down in front of him. So the fish is between him and the rocks, okay? And so he's obviously floating sort of with his back down, and it just would appear that the shark come up from behind, hit his leg and rolled him upside down, and, you know, once it got the taste, it just took off.
Yeah, righto.
So he wasn't mauled, you know. He wasn't mauled. It was just one bite.
But did it hit the big artery?
Yeah, so that's why I spoke to the ambo after. I said, he told me, he said there's two big collateral arteries that run down through your body, down your leg, and that it got one of those arteries down, I think, like, I'm not sure where on the leg, but yeah, it's the femoral artery. And that's, I think I might have said to you last night, but the ambo said that when you cut that artery, that blood will pump out really fast. It's like the worst thing you can be cut by. And when you're in the water, there's no pressure there to try and stem that flow of blood. And so when you're in the water, you pump out even faster. And so that's why he didn't have a chance, really. So because he pumped out in the water, even if we'd got him on the rocks the first time, he probably didn't have a chance. Mm-hmm. So, you know, because when I started to swim him around, I don't think there was any more blood in the water. He'd stopped bleeding. You know, he bled out. Yeah,
right. Rugged, man. It's just bloody crazy. It's crazy chatting about it today. It was crazy chatting about it last night. Yeah.
And so the other thing that I wanted to share was So after the event, I think I told you we had some friends that have a house on the island, and they come down, they're devastated, and they come picked us up and took us back to their place, which made things really easy to transition. And they obviously took us back to our campsite in the morning, packed all their gear up with us so we could head off the island. But the one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to go back and see that young Spearo that he'd met at the water.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go and talk to him. So we drove down, and I knew where they camped because he told my brother they were the first campsite at the Marloo campsite, and I just pulled up, and those boys were sitting on the beach and having a couple of beers and having a really good time, big smiles on their face. And I got out the car and I just said, "Hey guys, I just come over here because I know my brother wanted to speak to you tonight, and I just know he would have wanted to share some wisdom and some experience to help you grow as a Spearo, and he'd want you to listen to the Noob Spearo podcast." And look, I said to him, look, my brother's 2 spear guns are still out there in the water. I said, and it was paining me when I was sitting on those rocks and seeing that huge big Adreno float just floating in the water with 30 metres of brand new float line and a roller gun on the end with a big Dewey hanging off the end of my spear gun. And I said, I just really appreciate it if the first light, if you just go straight out there and collect the spear guns if you can. I said, I don't expect you to go in the water, but if you could just collect those spear guns, I said, and you can just have it. I don't care. I want it to go to someone that would appreciate the equipment rather than it just go to waste or get collected by some fisherman who doesn't think much of it. And I just said that I know my brother would really appreciate that. It goes to some good use. And he was like, yeah. And he had this, it was when I told him he goes, that big red Adreno float, and his eyes were like a light, like it really obviously meant something to him. And look, he was smiling the whole time, and I just was glad he was able to smile because I didn't want it to ruin his experience on the island. I just said to him, I said, look, I'm not trying to scare you out the water. I still want you to be able to go out there and have fun and enjoy yourself. I said, but I would just like to tell you to be careful. And I just wanted you to know that because I said, you met him and you probably got questions yourself when you find out, because he obviously had no idea. I don't think he had any phone reception. Anyway, he made contact with me yesterday, and he had actually been able to go out there and recover the roller gun, but the real gun is still in the water there somewhere, and that's all right. I can live with that. And there's also that antique Sea Hornet belt out there as well. So anyway, but what happened? He recovered that roller gun and that, and then the rangers come round in the late, I don't know, later in the day or something, and they took it off him, told him that the police needed it for the investigation. And he told me that his mum she was in shock and horror because the initial report was that it was a young 20-year-old man had been taken off Indian Head, and she was just worried it was going to be him. And I was like, man, I'd hate to think of the fear of his mother, that the trauma that she might have gone through on the stress that it was her son as well. So I'm going to catch up with him. He's a local Brisbane boy as well, and we'll catch up with him later. And I'm just really glad he was able to go out and get that gun for me. I'll meet up with him, and I don't know if I'll give him that gun. Maybe I'll give him another gun, but I'll definitely give him something because it means a lot to me. And it was just good to be able to, I guess, maybe calm the situation. And I'm glad I went and told him too, because he would have known nothing about that. So he went and made contact with his mum just to let him know he's safe. So I think that was really important. So I was really glad I made that decision to go and see him.
They buggered up the reporting big time. There was other reports it was a scuba diver, and I was wondering why they got the reporting so wrong and mixed up.
I just want to release information, be the first people to say something, So
yeah, without getting their
and to most people, skin diving, scuba diving, same thing. But of course, there was all the idiots going, oh, he must have been doing something illegal, scuba diving with a spear, like all that stuff like that. I had a quick flash through there, but I didn't really care. I knew.
Yeah, good on you.
I knew all the idiots were going to be on there and say stupid stuff. So, which is why I wanted to get on the news and just sort of correct some of the story and just, get out there and promote the whole thing about harvesting your fresh fish and all that. That was really special to me because that's what he did.
That's what he liked.
A lot of the people just like, oh, look at these people entering shark-infested waters and just going around killing things.
But it's not about that, as all us guys in the community would know.
Yeah, you can tell a lot about people by how quickly they react to things and overreact to things. It's a real mark of maturity to just hold your words and respect people's right to grieve and just get past things. I think you just come off looking like a dickhead too, spouting off about stuff you know nothing about, like especially when you're not there and all the rest of it. So that stuff annoys me, and I wasn't even privy to the incident. I'm already sitting there seething, reading some of this shit. But you've done well to avoid it, Rob. But good on you, man.
Yeah, thanks, mate. But that's I think that's everything I wanted to cover off on. And if I think of other things, I'm not going to harass you now. But I really wanted to tell the G-fish story. That's that's a classic.
I'll remember that one myself, man. I
feel like I stuffed up the line fisherman joke because I was a bit emotionally caught up at the time. But I had a good laugh with the all line fishermen are fat and lazy.
Yeah.
That's
especially
Spearo way.
Considering some of your family are line fishermen, it's you giving them a bit of stick at the same time, which is everyone would enjoy, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome, Rob. Cool, man. I'd like to touch base with you again, but we'll do that again in the future. But I'm stoked we could do it again this morning and catch up on a few other bits and pieces. And I just sort of thought about it. Sometimes I didn't really want to ask a lot of the deep questions, I guess, because I just felt like poking something sore, you know what I mean? But it's awesome and like I said, a real honour to share the story. So thanks for coming on again.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Massive chat today with Rob Tratt, the brother of Matt, obviously, who was fatally attacked on Frazer Island off the coast of Queensland, Australia. And it was really cool getting to share that story with you. It was a real honour, to be honest, to be reached out and to have the privilege of interviewing him, getting him to share the full story about what happened. And takeaways and actionable and practical stuff is generally what I'm about on this show, but I don't really want to do too much of that today. In the next few weeks there might be a few things that come and get shared on the noobspearo.com, and by all means tune in, have a look, and we can learn about first aid, we can learn about how to dive with sharks better, but sometimes tragedy happens, shit happens. It's the nature of spearfishing, and Matt lived his life to the fullest, absolutely loved and frothed on spearing, and I'd encourage you to go out and continue to do the same. But the reality is, spearfishing, there are risks, and Matt paid a massive price, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's a horrible thing, but needless to say, I hope you enjoyed the episode today, and Matt frothed on spear, and I hope you do too, and I hope you continue to enjoy it, and I hope you continue to do it safely. And anyway, as usual, guys, I'm your host, Isaac aka Shrek, and it was fantastic to be able to break the story and share it with you today on today's episode. And I just wanted to thank Rob for reaching out to me and just being keen on sharing back with the spearfishing community and with you guys, the listeners. And Matt was a listener as well, so awesome to get to share his story, even though it was such a horrific accident and a tragedy for his family and the Spearo community. And we've lost a champion, an absolute top bloke, and I haven't got much else to add today to today's episode. Real shock to the system, and I got in from a couple of 12-hour shifts at work, and finally got to get on the phone with Rob after a couple of days and break the story with you. So hey, I'll see you again soon for another episode of the Noob Spearo podcast. Something very different today, but cool getting to share it with you guys. So I'm over and out. Shrek out.